I mean, you yourself, did you kill anyone?
I did.
How many people?
One, April 15, 2004.
What was that situation about?
Our fob got incoming, got mortared. I was on FOB Palawata, forward operating base Palawata, and that took indirect mortar fire and rocket fire every single day. And we had a satellite system that would track the trajectory of the round and give us the point of origin, the POO. And it was our job as grunts, infantrymen, to go out QRF and try to locate the insurgents who just had bombed us. And that day, that's what happened. I was actually going to the restroom, going number 2, and we started getting incoming. And I was like, there was no protection whatsoever. I'm like, man, I'm gonna die on the shitter right now. And so I just threw on my gear real quick, and I already knew, when you get incoming, you're gonna be going out. You're quick reaction force, so hey, load up in the Humvees. So we go, and this was wild, man. It almost seemed like the days that were wild were really, really wild. And we get into a chase, a vehicle chase, and we're in Humvees. Those things top out at 60 miles per hour, so you're not moving fast at all. And we had Iraqi National Guard attached with us, ING. Those were the Iraqi military. And they ended up pulling a vehicle over, a random vehicle over, and just beating the shit out of a random civilian. I mean, you saw a lot of that weird stuff, just beating the shit out of them. But we kind of knew they weren't the ones. They get back in, so we load up and we set up a traffic control checkpoint, a TCP, and we see a white truck come toward us. They see us and they turn around. So we're like, hey, let's load up, let's fucking go. So we get in the vehicles and we chase them, and I was driving. I was a driver of a Humvee. And they park in front of a house, and they bail, and they run through the house. And something told me, hey, just chase them. I should have stayed with the vehicle, but I'm at the time, I made the decision to chase them. So it was me, Sergeant Hendrickson, Dino, and Hinks. It was 4 of us. We ran around the house. They ran through the house, and we met them out back. Well, Sergeant Hendo he caught one of them, and there was still 2 dudes running in front of us, and they were gaining on us, dude. They were gaining on us. This was April 15th. And I asked my sergeant if I could shoot warning shots, and he's like, yeah. So we shoot warning shots, and they're still hauling ass. And then that's when I seen one of them kind of turn toward us, and then I just shot twice. Boom, boom. And I seen him skip the ground. I seen his hand. He was at a distance. He had to have been like at 250 meters to 300 meters. He was pretty far. And I'm like, hey, fuck, I shot him. So we keep running, and when I shot him, the other buddy took off running the other way. And when I get to the guy, there's a canal in between us, and it is dry mud, or it was mud in there. There was no water, it was just mud. And the dude is on his knees, and he was soaked in blood. Soaked in blood. And I remember telling myself, like, please let that be mud. Please let it be mud from him crossing the canal, because I hadn't shot anybody up until that point. And we get across, and my sergeant says, hey, you shot him, you search him. So I kick him in the back, and he's like, oof. And he lays out in the prone, and then I go to search him, because they teach us EPW, enemy prisoner of war searches, to make sure they don't have any more weapons or grenades. And when I put my hands on his back, my hand slipped, because his back was so slick with blood, and I fell on top of him, and I looked at my hands, and I'm like, oh, fuck. So I started wiping my hands in the dirt, and I remember thinking, like, man, I got blood on my hands. Like the saying goes, you got blood on your hands. So the dude, the exit round had come out of his neck, and the dude was gushing, the dude was leaking, but we still had a job to do. We still had to go find the other guy. Like I said, our camp had just got mortared, and we were in a really bad area, man. We were in a really bad area. And we went to go try to find the other guy. Couldn't find him, he was gone. And the other guy ended up bleeding out and dying.
I mean, how did you feel after that? I mean, obviously, this is war. This is not, just a disagreement or whatever. He was trying to kill you guys. You guys were, retaliating. But this is the first time you actually went through this. Were you okay with this, or did it bother you?
I was not okay with it. I was not okay with it at all. On the way back to the Humvees, his family was there crying in the front of the house. And the dad shook my hand for some reason, and I shook his hand, which I think all of this was weird. And when I get back to the FOB, Sergeant Coleman was there, or some other sergeant, and they're like, hey, who shot him? Who shot him? Because my actual last name is Farrell. Hey, was it Farrell? right? And they're like, yeah. He's like, oh, yeah, I just won $20. So they were taking bets because they heard it on the radio, one enemy KIA. And they were wondering who had shot him, because up until that point, nobody in our platoon had killed an enemy or had fired a weapon in that manner. So I'm sitting in my cot. I'm sitting on my cot in my little cubicle. You asked me how I felt. I felt like I was going to hell. You know, I grew up religiously. I grew up Catholic. At that time, I had definitely fallen out of faith. Definitely fallen out of faith with my God and with my religion due to everything that was occurring. But a chaplain came and sat across from me. And he said, I know exactly what you're going through. And in my head, I'm like, how do you know what I'm going through? And then I must have said that out loud, because he's like, because 30 years ago, I was sitting exactly where you were in the Vietnam War. And like, I remember looking up, and he had explained to me he was in the same predicament in Vietnam, and that God, during a time of war, I mean, this is what he explained to me, that allows this type of stuff, that it wasn't murder. And at the time, that made me feel better, you know, whether it was or it wasn't, or, you know, it does not, I'm not cool with it. I'm not cool with it. I got a daughter now, and I dread the day that she asked me any that type of those questions.